Hi, Sachin.
Hey, Dinkar.
So, Sachin, last time we were talking about product management and how to align to business, especially with the enterprise in mind, right? And we had our usual set of digressions. So today I wanted to ask you, technologist, as a technologist, I know personally you're very aligned to the business, but I feel that's rare. So I wanted to talk about technologist aligning to business, right? But before we go there, kind of some baseline definition, right? What comes to your mind when you hear technologist? And I think we need to differentiate between technologist and developer. What's the baseline definition we'll go with for this discussion at least?
I think during different points in my career, I have seen that definition of technologist evolving. And there were two factors. I was spending more time, I was getting more senior in the industry itself. And the second is that the industry itself is evolving and they want more. And the simple parallel which I can draw is when I started my career about 18-20 years ago, everyone used to do one specific skill. Either you are writing backend, that is database programmer, or business logic like backend programming, or UI programmer, front end, or you could be something different or niche. Example is you are a mainframe programmer.
But yeah, those like you're a VC plus plus.
Yes.
That's who we are. I don't know if Delphi or all those ever took up, but
Delphi was slightly before me, but yes, you're right.
Yeah, either you're a C program. What you are is your skill, right? You're a C programmer, and that's your career. VC plus plus. Oracle had some things going, Oracle financials, and so on and so forth.
But now in 2010 onwards, what I have seen is one trend was picking up, which is full stack development. They wanted to basically one single programmer do the work from writing database code, then backend logic, send that data to front end, and also do the front end programming.
And I think that came because of the startups, right? Startup couldn't
exactly. They couldn't hire all these niche roles. So they said it is not super difficult to learn these skills in one role. Why don't we actually start demanding that? And people were also realizing that learning these skills, which are extremely adjacent to each other, it was extremely first of all satisfying as a developer to get code right from database to the front end.
Right.
And second thing was, it was also exhilarating that you are not waiting for other people.
Right.
So it was very productive. It removed a lot of barriers, and it was not so difficult to achieve.
Hey, one thing, Sachin, I think one of the reasons is this scenario where you're writing something, but you see the effect of it at the end product, and you see an end user use it, right? Yes. So I think that the seeds of alignment to business started happening when developers started to say that I prefer to be a full stack developer.
Correct. And that also brings a very important point, which is nice segue into what I am about to say, is if you are thinking about modern web application developer in a startup, you cannot just think about, hey, I want to just write the backend code. I want to just do the DevOps. If you think right now, engineers are supposed to do everything from writing code to deploying code and also supporting code to a great extent because of this cloud, you don't need to depend upon heavy ops people. Cloud is running. All you have to do is program it, manage it, very lightweight, low touch.
Right.
The thinking now is we are also extremely reactive to what the application is doing in the wild. We want to be continuously respond to whether something is actually working or not. Can I change it? Can I improve it? So this particularly this trend, which is coming from obviously the massive web startups in Valley, that you can see that it is now global. You do not want to deploy a feature, you do not want to change the color of a button, you don't want to change height and width of a product listing unless and until there is proof that actually this works or not.
Right.
So developers are now getting involved into coding these A/B testing elements, making sure that they get the feedback. They are working with the business analysts, they are working with the marketing folks. So as a technologist today, if you are in the right company, not in a very I would not I don't want to sound old company, but company which is not extremely user centric, I would say. Right. That you think that you can build software and just people should use it. If you are not one of those companies and you want to build user centric software, it is impossible to not know business. You will need to know business.
Yeah, I think this is where startups hold a big advantage over enterprises, because in startup, a developer can be 1 degree removed from the end user because of the stark reality of the business. You did something, didn't work out, you immediately know. But in enterprises, you are 2-3 degrees away from the end user, and that creates that kind of I think that is the root cause of misalignment.
Now I would like to question, because this position was the same even with these web companies. Earlier, when they used to develop software which was customer facing, they had never any idea how customers are using it. That changed. They said this needs to shorten. Everybody needs to know, business needs to know, developers or engineering teams needs to know, as in technologists needs to know now enough about our business that they can operate with this knowledge. It is not that they are going to drive the decisions, but they cannot actually say, I don't need to know this.
Yeah.
They need to know at least enough about it that how I should react to this, right, so that they can contribute. In enterprises, Dinkar, that is changing. I'll give an example. How many times you and I are getting involved into this developer experience conversations? Right. Seemingly products which are consumed by developers within an organization. There is no real customer out there. The right. customer themselves are sitting within the organization. And companies are realizing that you cannot think customer as only a customer who is ready to pay for some services. Right. Every system has a consumer. That consumer could be an API consumer, or as in another developer, or it could be actual end user who is paying for the services or subscription or something. So I do think that is changing.
Yes, and I think CX, the whole focus on customer experience. I think EX, the customer, the employee experience should be equally important, given equal importance. I think there has been this mindset, oh, the employee has now come in, and you put them in front of this badly designed software and say that it's your day job, you're getting paid for it, so don't complain, just use it. Yeah. Right. And the same set of people are expected to suddenly be so empathetic, super empathetic, and super caring about user experience of another set of people, which the same people are telling them, hey, they are our customers, so you have to think about them. We don't think about you, but you have to think about them. Absolutely. And I think that has broken. And customer experience is a very interesting concept. I totally agree with it, but I've started talking everywhere about employee experience being at the same footing. But go ahead. I mean, what are the other ways where enterprises are not able to make decisions or provide an environment where their development team is aligned to business? But again, coming back to the original question, I think developer versus technologist, is it that when you are early in your career, you're a developer, and you're not expected to have alignment. But when you become senior, more responsibility, you become a technologist because now you're thinking of the alignment. Is it okay that way, or should on day one you should have this alignment?
I think it's gradual. I see these as two knobs. I don't see that one fine day you become technologist, and I don't think that technologist is equal to developer plus business knowledge. Um, I think technologist is anybody who applies their technology to achieve something, basically solve a problem. The scope of problem is changing today. Earlier, we used to think about development as a thing which happens in an IDE. It's a black box to the rest of the world. Um, I think that notion is changing. So I think developer and technologist are synonyms to me. It's just that the degree of your exposure to understand the business problem is now getting more rich.
Yeah.
And that's how I see it.
Interesting. I mean, so what I hear is that let's not get too much into developer technologist. I mean, at least they're quite synonymous to each other. But the other thing is that the alignment to the business should not be correlated to your years of experience or your responsibility. It should always be there. The other thing is, you kind of hinted at it, and it's very interesting that the aim is to solve a problem, right?
Yes.
Of a technologist, maybe using coding to do that, maybe using low code environment where you're just dragging, dropping things. Maybe then that's another way, using some other kind of lo-fi technology, anything, but you're essentially solving a problem. And I think
Yes.
that is one big change that has happened. Technologists or developers going from coding a requirement to solving a problem using
Yes.
code. I think that shift has been an awesome thing to happen for the community.
I mean, that's exactly was needed, right? To elevate the value of developers in the food chain. If you
Right.
think about, uh, if you think about an analogy of road construction, somebody up top who has specialized degree in road construction technologies, the materials, the requirement of the road, the banking angle, and whatnot, some engineer must have sat down and figured out all the methods, right? Then they transfer that to a contractor who takes all these instructions, transforms that into, okay, I need this type of material which is going to come, which we are going to lay on the top. The first of all, 6 inches digging needs to happen. These instructions, and then they go to the very low cost, untrained labor, almost untrained labor,
Yeah.
hand over these instructions, and they say, start like laying down this material.
Yeah.
You don't need to know what type of material, what mixture of tar versus rubble versus which type of stone we are grinding, at what level we are grinding. You don't need to know anything. All you have to do is
Is a
get this.
truckload later.
Yes,
Yeah.
spread it evenly. It has to be 2 inch thick. That's all that you need to worry about. But developers used to almost be like this order taker. There used to be somebody who used to translate these business instructions into very solid requirements, and requirements used to flow into architecture. And these big architects who used to almost have this god status within a company, they used to translate that into UML diagrams, and then if I, as a developer, will get one method to implement out of it. And they would have also written very detailed English description about what this method is supposed to do. So, and we realize this is almost like constructing road. You do not want these developers to solve anything. You want these developers to just lay out a 2 inch layer
Start
thick,
digging.
start digging. And I think that change of mindset, where people started realizing this doesn't need to happen this way. What we can do is we can ask these technologies, they have their experience, they have solved complex problems. Why don't we actually ask them to solve it end to end? And that, first of all, reduced huge amount of communication.
Yeah.
And then it removed all these barriers, gave a lot of
Then
freedom.
such in that Office, the movie, right?
Yes.
Office space, like we need those person, right, who take
Yes.
the facts from and take it, because they
Yeah.
have people skills, and developers don't have people skills. Yeah.
Absolutely. I need to take this in like requirements from the customer and hand it over to the developer, right? Because they don't have people skills.
Yeah.
So I do believe that also unearths one of the biggest um, lack of skill in developers or engineers is the ability to solve problems.
Hmm.
Not everybody is able to solve problems when they are presented with a business problem,
Hmm.
something which is vague, something which is ambiguous, and they need a certain level of distillation of that problem from business domain into tech domain. Then only they can translate it. But now, um, as earlier, you could just get away with writing Java code in the backend.
Yeah.
Today, if you want to have a very solid career, you need to know about database, you need to know enough about your stack, and you need to also know about the front end or mobile or something, right? Similarly, I do believe that engineers needs to be even more holistic, more aligned with at least enough knowledge about business. What am I coding this for? Having that solutioning capabilities. I know not everybody is going to be there,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you want to excel, you need to start learning the skill of solving problems,
Right.
deal with ambiguity. And how do you deal with ambiguity? There are like 100 books. We are not going to talk about the steps to solve a problem, but
Yeah.
I think this is a very critical skill today in enterprise.
Actually, the if you look at the stereotypical, stereotypical image of a developer, all they want to do is, I want to write code in the latest and the greatest uh,
Yes.
coding language, or use the latest library, right? Is uh, is that really is is that, first of all, really true? In the sense that, yes, people have curiosity, we want to learn. That's a different aspect. But is is has that ever been one of the reasons for rejection earlier of being business aligned? Like, I have an opportunity to learn or do something more, I rather spend on moving from Java to Scala rather than solve the same, pick up a new business domain and solve same problem, a different problem, using the same language like Java.
I mean, that is a very, very good question. And I have certainly certain opinion around this, but let me just get it out, right? There were two school of thoughts on learning new language. One school of thought used to be that my current language is not adequate to solve a problem which I'm dealing with. I'll
Hmm.
give an example of that. Um, in uh, in early days of programming languages, when I started my career, Java was the de facto standard, which was becoming to write backend logic. It
Yeah.
was reliable. It was adopted in enterprise. It was proven, um, and it was not super difficult to learn. It was object oriented. It checked all the boxes, right? The only trouble with Java was very little competition, and they didn't need to move at a pace which certain businesses wanted.
Hmm.
So this sudden emergence of this rapid application development, RAD, uh, uh, frameworks slash languages started cropping up. And this is where dynamic languages shown really well is Python or Ruby. These languages at that time, they were a good alternative to Java.
Hmm.
And they had a very solid
For
business
certain,
case,
for certain use cases.
particularly the web applications, where you uh, if you want to start a web application which is, let's say, creating a library or like standard CRUD CRUD operations, right? Create, update, retrieve and delete.
Yeah.
You don't need to write a massive amount of code.
Hmm.
You can focus more on your business logic and user interface, and that was a good business case. So there was incentive to go into these languages,
Hmm.
and so people learn new techniques and languages to solve a problem which is not solved by their existing tool. So I
Hmm.
get it. This is legitimate case in my mind. Second is, a lot of my friends started learning these new languages not because this was their current limitation. They
Hmm.
were doing that because it was lucrative. because every new skill in software industry, when it comes up, it gives you an opportunity of like shuffling the basically
Such,
your
I
career.
will tell you once, a very senior banking exec, on the totally on the business side, called me on the side and I say, what is this? Maybe I have talked a lot about this React versus I'm blanking. What is that library? React and Angular.
Angular.
What is this React versus Angular? First they said we should do this. Now they're saying we have to move to this. Is it just IT people just creating job for themselves? Because now in enterprises, when you're moving from one to another, it's a big migration. And many times the reason to move is we don't have skill. And if we move to that, we'll be able to hire better. And at least in one scenario, it was that if we don't do this, we will lose these engineers, right? So, and that's where I think this impression that technologist is more interested in learning the latest and greatest rather than solving the business problems solidified. I think that is something that has to be addressed, that has to be corrected in a way. Maybe one of the aspects of business alignment would be, hey, this technology decision is being taken because of this business reason. And it's a valid reason we have to move to the new technology because it's easier to hire for the new technology. That's a totally valid, but it has to be articulated like that. And it cannot be, we have to do this because this is the new, better language.
Absolutely. And I think that is very critical, that people are using the right tool for the right business problem, but you cannot control. I mean, like, if I want to be very self-centric at this point, I don't want to think about the global good and then my business or company goals or everything, then it is in my best interest to learn a skill which pays me more.
Right.
So obviously I would like to go. And software industry has been always in this push and pull.
Yeah.
Where there are developers, companies would like to go there because that's the solid formula to get talent attraction.
Exactly.
If more developers want to code Scala, then enterprises will say it is easier to get Scala developers. Why don't I actually start moving my certain business applications into Scala, unless Scala is extremely deterrent to my business application?
Yeah, which rarely any technology as such is.
I mean, there are some bad combinations. Example, if you want to write a stock trading application, you would not choose Ruby on Rails for that, even though Ruby on Rails people might be available in abundance. But at the same time, if you are doing stock trading, then you have a lot of money. You can dictate people to write some very obscure language. There's no problem with that. So yes, and that's why the right tool for the right trade is something which is sort of also balancing out because of the evolution of frameworks.
Right.
Almost for every problem, there are now 4 options available.
Hmm.
And you don't need to rely on only one option. Earlier, there used to be like only certain applications and certain solutions. Today, we are actually having a problem of more choices. You need to be educated into more solutions and ability to solutioning. And this
Hmm.
is where I wanted to also come is enterprises now rely more on their employees, basically technologists or developers you are calling, to understand what are the true requirements of this business,
Exactly.
understand what technological problem you need to solve, and then create a appropriate solution which has a proper life cycle to it. I mean, you should not start taking some decisions today which will completely shut your options 2 years down the line.
Right.
And I
And,
think this is very critical now.
and this change, not causation, but there's a strong correlation between the rise of product management as a profession, right? Um, because there is more expectation of technologists to be aligned, there was this layer needed, which is contextualizing each other's world to each other. And definitely bringing in their own. And I think that's why this product management also kind of grew, because the same ask is not just about technology. The same ask is also about the design, the architecture, product architecture, and what solution we are going in. That's why this. So Sachin, if you had to give like 5 things to do, or 2 things that a developer should do to become business aligned, uh, what's your magic list of actions to take to become a better uh, aligned developer?
I think first a skill which I would ask people to, or 2 things to do. So it is thing activity I'm thinking is they need to start talking to business folks more,
Mm.
and not in an interrogatory way. Many times I have seen developers actually start talking to business people as if like they are. I would not say
Let me find
beneath.
the bug in your business.
Yeah, I mean it's like business. In my mind, I have seen that uh, uh, strong opinions without substance is nothing but arrogance.
Yeah.
And developers, they feel they are king of their world
Hmm.
or queen of their world. And the trouble why they feel that is in their world, everything centers around solutioning when they code.
Hmm.
And what they believe is that we are the central cog. We are the engine of this entire business machinery.
Hmm.
And this is also like stopping them to go and learn about, no, this is not actually a proper full engine.
Hmm.
Probably I'm a wall.
Hmm.
Probably I'm a spark plug.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm the fuel line, or maybe I'm the crankshaft. So the thing is, for many businesses, uh, technology is just um, incidental. It is a means to an end. And I think that also is changing similarly. And the fun thing is, Dinkar, everywhere the lines are getting blurred.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, when JP Morgan says we are a tech company
Yeah.
which happens to be doing banking business,
Yeah.
that tells you that, and this is not even a recent quote, it is an old quote, that they have realized that technology is not just an incidental to us, it is not just means to an end, it is actually central to our tech at core, right? So when you are thinking about tech at core, business is going to be more relying upon technology. And if
Exactly.
that is going to happen, technology also, or the technologist also needs to play a very mature role. They
Yeah.
cannot behave this that you don't know nothing about technology.
Hmm.
And it is I mean, and I think partly Hollywood is to blame for this. If you have seen in any movie, the tech guys are wearing double glasses, very weird nerdy kind of thing.
Both
And
of
they,
us have glasses though, as of
I
now.
mean, we don't use double glasses, right? Those are like,
Oh
I
yeah.
think Ace, I have seen in Ace Ventura, right? It's like they are a hold into some, and these people are extremely unfriendly.
Yeah.
Or even like movies like Matrix, right? Very weird. You don't want to interact with them more than necessary.
Yeah.
So
My
these,
favorite is the Jurassic Park character, right? The programmer who.
and I think that is where that needs to go away. First of all, everybody needs to come on to a very close proximity, and they need to start understanding what these different roles are supposed to provide me information, how they can actually complement my skills, and develop a better understanding about what business we are in, who
Right.
are the actual payers of this solution, where the money comes from, where the value is. Uh,
That is very important. So the first one is go talk to business, understand their world. I think the second one is very important. Have a very good understanding where the money is coming from. Uh,
Absolutely.
and it's even more complicated in enterprise like everything else. But I think that what was your journey to this? I'm sure where money comes from, or was it when you were involved in the startup? That's when you started realizing that's a very important thing, or you had some
Unfortunately, that
earlier.
is the truth. Unfortunately, I did not understand it that well when I was in ThoughtWorks in my first stint. Uh, but then that was a rude awakening in many sorts. Uh, what happens is that when you are young, you are actually trying to understand what is my skill, and you are also trying to uh, be a uh, adult, right, about your skills. But what happens is business, the way they are also evolving, every business is in its journey. Technology, when you think about solving problem, and that's why I joined ThoughtWorks back, is I realized that startups, when technologists talk, they think that if I know a problem and I know a solution, that's a company. And they think rest everything doesn't matter. In fact, I have so many times met people who think that if I have identified a problem, I have identified a solution, rest everything doesn't matter. Money just flows magically somewhere. And I
You
think,
was that you build it and they will come, right?
yeah. And the thing is, Dinkar, that's there are unfortunately certain stories to support this thing,
Yeah,
but they are one in million stories in my mind.
exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, uh, that might have happened to somebody. The chances of that
At
may
least
happen to
happened in
you.
one movie.
Yes,
Yeah,
it may not happen to us.
yeah.
Uh, understanding business, where the money comes from, who is going to be ultimate value recipient of my business, is extremely critical knowledge.
Hmm.
And I think for this, you need to start talking to right a kind of people,
Right.
people who have been on a journey, people who are in product management, people who are in business management, people who are in different functions of your company. If,
Hmm.
let's say, I am building a software which is end user facing, I need to understand what my marketing team is telling me,
Hmm.
what works. And recently, I was watching India's Shark Tank show,
Hmm.
and in that, one of the judges, who is actually having these electronic company, right, boat. So he was telling, when he hired these young 20, 21-year-old kids from management school, and they were responsible for their marketing campaign on Instagram and
Hmm.
TikTok.
Hmm.
So he said, okay, run a campaign. It's like, you need to run. We need to actually sell more
This is the
headphones.
budget, and these many clicks we not. This is the CTR we want, and
Yes,
started. Yeah.
and he says that they put one image of headphones, and next to it they said it's Friday, and they dropped the D from it, and they showed him that this is what we are going to post, and he said this is the wrong spelling.
Yeah.
They said it's okay, it's cool, don't talk about that, just see rest of the things, it's matching or not. And they said okay, and that campaign actually went viral.
Yeah.
So what he was saying is, he was only 35 years old,
Yeah.
and he said, I did not understand what these guys were doing,
Yeah.
but they knew exactly what they were doing.
They were doing.
So if he would have put his foot down, he's founder of the company, and if he's not open to learn from these marketing chaps how this campaign works, he will never be able to actually capitalize on it.
So
Similarly, yeah,
yeah, so you called out three things. One, talk to business. Second
yes,
is figure out where the money comes from. Three, talk to people who have undergone these kind of journeys in their career.
yes,
So that's very interesting. So, but that's boat, right? And boat is in India, and is a much more dynamic market. Uh, in if you're in enterprise, right, and we are working with this global bank, and one of the things that the leader said that uh, was that I'm losing best of my engineers to IT companies, right? So I'm
yes,
competing with these product startups who are creating products for us, all these IT giants, and the banks never had to face that, right? So they for, if you were in such a scenario, right? You're a technologist in a bank, right? And you're leading a group of people, right? And you understand that one of the ways I will make these people stay, engage more, feel excited, is quickly align them to the business so they see the work they are doing, how it affects the business, right? Or what kind of suggestions do you have for those technology leaders?
I mean, if I started giving those suggestions and if this is a solved problem, then I have solved the great resignation, right? So, no, I mean, I don't have a good silver bullet. But I think there are this problem, although the particular problem which you talked about, that enterprises are facing attrition, that problem might be new, but this similar problem we have solved in other areas, and I think it's worth taking inspiration from those. Example would be is uh, sometimes a company faces certain type of attrition of customers, and then companies reinvent themselves, right? That,
Exactly.
oh, I need to actually change. Good example, I was actually listening to a podcast about is Best Buy turnaround.
Yeah.
The biggest competition to Best Buy was actually Amazon.
Yeah.
And they realized Amazon cannot do something which Best Buy can, which
Yes.
is giving a product in customers' hands. Let them check it out first.
It's like
Yeah,
brilliant. Yeah.
yeah. And then first of all, check it out, feel it, and then make a purchase.
Yeah.
But what Best Buy did not have is very quick delivery to the home.
Hmm.
And they solved that problem. They matched the prices. Similarly, in if you think about today, developers are also asking for few things.
Hmm.
You can make them participate into certain, as you mentioned, give them a good transparent journey to how this product is affecting business,
Yeah.
how they are creating an impact. Do not let them feel that they are just creating software which is going in a black hole.
Yeah.
It is always gratifying, no matter whether you are working in a bank or a startup, right? Is I wrote code which made a difference.
Yeah.
So,
Or even if it made a negative impact, I come to know about it so I can react to it. We can do something different or better, or, you know,
and I think that's why we keep talking about this. First of all, measuring these business outcomes, demonstrating it, tracking it on a regular basis, because now engineering teams can see that their code is actually making a difference in the business outcomes, which they promise to end users or their management or whoever, right?
and I think certainly one of the key things here I want to spend some time there is, though we haven't discussed concepts like Polaris on this podcast yet, but the important part there is a lot of businesses, they get stuck in finding the causation, and the correlation itself is great. You're doing
Yes.
all these things and things are happening. That, outcome is the best evidence of excellence. Forget doing analytics, and there are ways of doing, but forget spending so much of time so you can directly draw the line. As long as there is a correlation, good things are happening here, leading to good things happening on the business side, go for it. So I think that that's a very important point you raised. Yeah.
Correct. And the second thing which I do believe they need to also do is um, break their large monolithic execution plans into smaller chunks. The one thing which actually fatigues human mind more than and I have experienced, that's why I'm saying, is a 2-year long program is extremely boring to be after 12 months, unless it is some ground breaking, earth shattering kind of like a thing which keeps my mind busy, right? If the tough part about is about to get over, then people will start losing interest.
Hmm.
So break it down into some logical chunks which can be moved into like 6 months, 3 months, 9 months, so that people have that feeling of newness.
Right.
And then it is also like, again, going back to point one, if something goes live in 6 months, I get to see that it made a difference. It started making a difference.
Right. Right.
So I think that gratification is critical to people to retain, and also adopt newer technologies, which I don't see many enterprises are hesitant to do. They are currently only limited by their either business or funding or something else. But now they
Compliance.
are
Compliance.
compliance, or but they are awakening to that.
Yes.
They understand that we are not going to just have like, okay, there used to be such thing as X bank has approved Java 1.5.
Yes,
All
it's
software
still
will be
there.
in Java.
It's still there. Every bank, every such organization has a organization that approves that this is, you can use this product, you can use this version of this product, right? It's
Correct. But
still there.
I do believe that in certain areas of business where such kind of like compliance is extremely tedious, I think there they have, but most of the rest, like application which doesn't need to be that compliant, they are open for other things. And I was talking to one of the Singapore based bank, and they have very restricted now that type of specification to a very small set of components in their organization, and rest they use node.js, they use in some places they are using Ruby, and some places they are using Spring Web Boot, which is very modern. So they are open to that.
So that's a very interesting thing that is happening, is that organizations are carving out based on the domain. Uh,
Yes.
that here the we need to have these kind of rules and regulation. It's important. So let's not make it the this tight grip need not be everywhere. Let's not make it a normal. It's
Yes.
needed in this. Let's carve this out. Rest everywhere where there's a potential to experiment, adopt new, faster methodologies, they've started to. So carving out is one way in which I feel enterprises are kind of hitting back at these IT organizations and becoming a more viable or a more attractive employer to the best of the technology mind. I think the other area, Sachin, where enterprises have are expected to do more, and it kind of is becoming a big challenge for them, is around data, right? The data
Yes.
governance, the privacy, the whole thing that comes with data governance, which I feel that smaller organizations, for me, the data governance cost, the cost of doing business kind of is a logarithmic curve. When you're small, it's low, but the moment it becomes big and you become bigger, bigger, it almost like, tends to infinity. And it's like, if you're approaching the speed of light, your mass is becoming infinite. Like something like that starts happening. So I think one of the ways that enterprise are trying to, some of them have done some good job around it, is again carving out the areas where the data governance has to be very tight, and carving out areas where the data governance can be automated, can be done in a in much more a programmatic way, and reduce the requirement to very small set, and their PIIs, being aware of personal identifying information and all those things. So like you said, right? So in enterprise, carving out is becoming one way, and also being very smart about data governance is also one way where so if a CTO of a bank is listening, right? So how would you summarize the key takeaway for that person to, well, CTO actually, maybe CIO, CTO, or maybe even VP of engineering, the IT head of IT, because people kind of fall into that. So if the head of IT is listening to us, what are the 2, 3 things you want that person to start doing immediately?
I think break it down into smaller chunks, participate them, basically employ visibility across business. What
Hmm.
impact is happening, and
Line of sight from tech world to the business outcome.
correct. And that happens in banks. I mean, every time they are securing funding, there is a business case. They are actually talking about how this is making impact. It's just not visible to the engineering team. You need to let them participate into that a little bit more, and a little bit break down the hierarchy, make it democratization of like this data needs to be democratized.
Right.
Unless it is like super behind like compliance or something like that, and even though it is possible to aggregate and demonstrate a benefit. to the
Or
engineering
even,
teams.
there are ways to obfuscate data, and then,
Correct.
it no longer identifies someone. It no longer carries any personal information. It becomes a data on which someone can experiment, do data science. Yes, there are smarter ways.
And break it down into smaller chunks. I mean, if let's say there is a 3-year journey of some program, can
Yeah,
you break it down into 6 months long each? Unless you do that, people are going to feel that, okay, I need to move on, or this technology is not actually solving my problem. Today, fortunately, you can create a very modular system which is lightweight, which allows you to actually adopt to this. Example is, let's say a system requires 50 microservices. All these 50 microservices today doesn't need to be in Java 1.5.
right.
You may start writing first 5 microservices in Java 1.5, and later on decide next 5 will actually happen in something more. I mean, like latest version of Java.
Sure.
And the later you could also do something in Node.js, or you could write some Lambda functions. So this was not an option earlier.
Right.
So you can also evolve your application, evolve your system with this new modular architecture, which adapts to newer technologies. Doesn't need to actually adopt to only a standard tool base for next 5 years, and that will not only satisfy to an extent this learning thirst of your engineers, but also allow you to benefit from the advances which technology is offering you.
Right.
This is not one way benefit. This is actually like win-win situation for both company as well as developers.
Yeah, that's right. So one of the things that I hear, Sachin, is, and this is something that I talk a lot about product managers, is product management is less of a behavior over, it's more of behavior over skills. To be a successful product manager, you need to have certain behaviors rather than just be a collection of skills. I think that paradigm shift is coming for developers also. Developers need to exhibit certain behaviors along with the skills they have. And one of the key behavior is, be very close to the business, understand the business, understand the revenue process, understand what people who have gone through this journey before are doing. So this whole shift, I think, in the industry, from you being a collection of your skills, from there to you being a collection of the skills you have and the behaviors you exhibit, is, I think, a very important shift that's happening. And I thought this was restricted to product management, but looks like it's expanding into technologists world also.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So this was great, Sachin. I think I learned a lot, and I now have a better understanding and maybe even better articulation next time I'm talking to a developer, who's little early in their career, or maybe advanced in the career but not thinking of business alignment. We all say, hey, go watch this, or maybe even talk about this. So this was,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Thanks.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think this is something which everybody learns at different stages in their life. It's just that uh, I happen to go on my own path, and I'm pretty sure that everybody's on their own journey. So yeah.
Yeah, everyone can't be, the journey of this maturity should not be that you have to do your startup, right? I mean,
Yes.
right, we have to decouple it from there. And I think this is something that people should learn in their first year or something, that this behavior. And I think this is something that I want to talk about maybe next time, or maybe in some future conversation, these behaviors, right, that we called out. So we should spend some time in calling out what these behaviors are and how they kind of can affect positively a person's growth, be a product manager, or be they be a technologist.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool. Okay, Sachin, Take care. This was nice. Thanks. See you
Take
next
care.
time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it
Bye-bye.
was fun. Bye bye.